goes the shiur of Gimel Kislev was Shabbos, and he continues right in the middle of the discussion. That's why it's so hard to understand if we're understanding the Tanya correctly, because the way the Fidikim divided the shiurim is very hard to understand. V'hine, this that we just started to discuss, that the second mile of mitzvah birurim, explains something else, and that is that lekiyum mitzvah, to fulfill a mitzvah, that nobody else can do on your behalf. The halach is mevatl and Talmud Torah. You could stop learning Torah. Even the Kabbalistic Ma'aseh Merkava. V'kolshkein tefillah, and for sure you can stop davening. And over here he means davening b'mdida v'agbala. That's what I'm saying. Nefesh. Shebechinas meichen. Because they're only ruchniistic. Davening is only ruchniistic, and it's your creation. Torah is only ruchniis, but at least the Eibish's creation. V'hatam kanal, and the reason I said before, because when you're learning Torah, and especially when you're davening, you're not mevader birurim gashmiyim. So now, the second point, which is that mitzvahs create birurim, it ends yesterday's shiur and it starts today's shiur, and now already goes point 3. So the division of the shiurim is very odd. In other words, if I'm telling you correct pshat, the chitas is divided funny, and of course, if the chitas is not divided funny, ich hakachan. So far you have 2 milas in mitzvahs. Okay, what are they? Mila number 1. That mitzvah creates yichudim, and chetzenes hakelim, and mile number 2, the mitzvah creates birurim. Now goes mile number 3, and mile number 3 is a very interesting mile. And this mile number 3 is very incredible, and it requires a short hakdama, not a long one. And that is that everybody knows the sugi of Eretz and Kelim. Everybody knows that Eretz or Eremin Amar, they're close to the source and the whole shturim. They're called dveikas nikeres, an obvious attachedness to the source. Kelim are Nivdal and Nelam, Muchulak and Mugul. Kelim are not Dveikas Nikeres, because Dveikas built in Nikeres. But Kelim of Atzilus, certainly according to the Shitas of Kabbalah, Chassidus holds, are a Lakus. The Baal Shem Tov says, Iya v'gamei echad doesn't mean when the air goes into the Kelim, it means the Chayes of the Kelim themselves. Kelim of Atzilus are a Lakus. So Kelim are further away from a Lakus than Oyer. But it says in Chassidus, and this is the point that I'm about to make, that although Kelim are further away from the Eibishter than Noyer, because their Dveikas built in Nikeres, Dveikas Nikeres is a moiden dika mile and Kelim over air. And what is that? That Kelim have their own etzem. Kelim's identity is that they are godly. Oyer's identity is that they're a reflection of God. Kelim have a mile that they have an etzem. They're a thing that's be'etzem alakus. Oyer, the whole idea of it is, I'm not me, I'm a reflection of my source. You understand? And it's like the difference between Torah and Neshama Yisrael. Torah is there, Neshama Yisrael are etzem. So Neshama Yisrael may be further from the Eibishter, but ultimately they have a deeper connection. The same is true of Kelim and Eretz. This Hakdama is going to explain point 3. Mitzvahs are connected to Kelim, and Torah is connected to Oyer. And therefore, mitzvahs are lower than Torah. Torah, Oyer, and mitzvahs is Neir. But on the other hand, because Kelim are the Atzmas of Elokus, mitzvahs also have this amount of Atzmas of Elokus. So the Rebbe makes a proposal. When you do a mitzvah, you're taking the Keli of Atzilus itself and bringing that Keli into Asiyah. When you study Torah, the light of Atzilus is reflected into Asiyah, and it's changing. Since Kelim are the Mahus Atzmas of Elokus, when you do a mitzvah, you're bringing that very Keli into Asiyah, which is not true in Limud HaTorah. You understand? Since Kelim have their own etzem, they're not just the gili of the Moed. They're the etzem of it. They're lukus in an they themselves are godliness. When you do a mitzvah, you're bringing the Keli of Atzilus itself into Asiyah. When you study Torah, you're revealing some of the light of Atzilus into Asiyah, which changes as it comes from Atzilus into B'riyah. And this is called in Hebrew Hamshacha Mimahus Lemahus. It's a funny lashon. We had it last year in Samach Vov. It's mentioned in Kuf Nevav Amid Beis. Hamshacha Mimahus Lemahus. The Mahus of Kelim of Atzilus is nimshach in the physical esrog. Later on, the Rebbe is going to ask a kasha. On Kuf Nezayin Amid Beis, it's going to be the first of the 2 notes, but that's later. This is the 3rd mile of mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are connected to Kelim. Kelim have the Atmos of Elokus. So you do a mitzvah, you're literally bringing Atzilus into this world. V'hine, v'oid zeis, a 3rd mile. Shebe'em is that in truth, ma'oid godla v'gava. For another reason, is far greater and far higher. Milos ha-mitzvahs ma'asiyas. The level of doing mitzvahs, and now he adds for the first time, v'chein limudam. which includes also learning the halachas of the mitzvahs ma'ases, because learning the halacha of mitzvahs ma'ases is considered part of the asiyah. And on the next page, Kuf is basically going to say that includes also the Kabbalah, because when you're learning aliva de hilchas, so you're not learning to understand, you're learning to know what to do. So you're serving the Eibush, not learning as well. Over a spiritual connectedness to the Eibishter, which is serving Hashem with Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem. And later on, he's going to say that not only is doing mitzvahs hard in Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem, he can say doing mitzvahs is higher than learning Torah. But higher than which type of learning Torah? When you're learning Torah, Shalei Aliba Dehilchas, Halachas She'enam Shchichas. Okay? Key. And the reason is as follows. Agam, the Kislev of the Pasuk says, if you want, and you come to the Eibishter, you should learn from the Eibishter's midas, and you should imitate the Eibishter's midas, which means to say you should feel in your heart Rachum and Chanun and Chesed like the Eibishter does. Says okay. Nevertheless, when you do what the Eibishter wants, you're not the Eibishter. Einenu Davok. He's not attached to the Eibishter, and he's not even attached to Afil, even in the spheres of Atzilus. Elabim Tziyusav Lebim Hus. You are being hadbek b'mideisav, right? Al pinigla hadbek b'mideisav means what? Imitate his midas. Al pikabala, what does hadbek b'mideisav mean? Draw chayes from chesed of atzilus into your chesed. But even according to Pnimius, that hadbek b'mideisav means you're tapping into the kelm of atzilus is only mitzvus namahus and it's changing. Huh? Yeah, but it means with a gili ein alaki. Ukmei as the pasuk says, "Vanech Ava ve'Efer." Avraham Avinu calls himself ash and earth, and the Alter Rebbe says, "And he gets Kiddush Timmit Tzvav at the beginning." Kashmati mir Abba Yisai. Then what does it mean? Avraham Avinu is ash and earth. Then although Avraham Avinu is Chesed of Atzilus, but as his Chesed of Atzilus comes into the Neshama B'Guf of this world, it's as insignificant compared to the Chesed. But isn't Atzilus like ash and earth is compared to a piece of wood? It's insignificant. So sure, Chesed is bringing Chesed of Atzilus into this world, but it goes to a great tzimtzum. Because we're talking about Oyer, and Oyer is Ruchnius, and Ruchnius changes from level to level. The Koshka Berin say Baruch Hu, and for sure, not the mid of Chesed, but the Eidin Sof, which is in Chesed. Nobody can grasp the Eidin Sof. The Espashas of Chayitz, many is Baruch, the expansion of life that comes from the Eibishter. Kim b'Metzius, only the form, the Metzius of Elokus, and not the Mahus. Shehu Mechayes Kul, because only the Metzius of Elokus gives life to everything. V'leibim Husay, not the essence, not the Ein Sof of Elokus. Afilu la'al yoinim, even to more ruchnis, the creations like Malachim. It says in the pasuk, Kaddish, 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 the seventh five gamer, that the Eibishter is holy, 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 removed even from Allah. So when you're trying to connect to the Eibishter through a hadbim and midezim, you want to tap into his Elokus. If you do that successfully, you're getting a ha'ara from the Metzias of Midas of Atzilus, and not the Mahus. It says, there is an exception to this rule. And that is that there are creations that are called Alulam Netzolim. They're Elokus, they're not Nevroim, they're not Malachim, they're much, much higher, that are actually Kalim for Ein Sof in its Mahus. That Masigim Kolachad Be'elasa, each one knows its cause. Kifiyasei de Shebeitz Chaim, like it's described in Eitz Chaim, Be'eslapchus Apartufim, in the manifestation of Apartuf. So there is a concept, Lamaila, of a Netzal knowing the Mahus of the Alien, knowing the Ein Sof of the Alien. But it's only one Madrega above himself. You know your immediate Ilah. And that Ilah knows its immediate Ilah. But there's no such thing in Biyah. There's certainly no such thing in Asiyah. And even the Shamas of Atzilus don't conform to this. Anything which is created in such a way that's separate from the Eibishter, when it's going to be Hadbik b'Mideisav, it's going to be the Metzias of Mideisav Shalach HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Eif Neich. Says the Rebbe, in creations, in other words, in Malachim and the Shamas of Bria, in Asiyah, you cannot have the Mahus of Alakus at all. I feel it in the Shamas of Atzilus, even in the Shamas of Atzilus. That Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, in Kuf Chof Tes Amar Aleph, Kuf Lamed Amar Aleph, Yotzu v'Nifedu, even the Shamas of Atzilus in Atzilus are not Iva Geichad, Chayechad Digameichad, and therefore they're not caring for the Ein Sof. These Netzolim, which you spoke about before, is even higher than the Shamas of Atzilus. Says the Alter Rebbe, that even Moshe Rabbeinu, where it says V'Isas Achayre B'Geimer, he can only see the back. Which Alter Rebbe is translating here that the back means the Metzias and not the Mahus. In short, if you are connected to the Eibishter to the vehicle of Ruchnius, the Ruchnius goes through Tzimtzumim. So it's not Mahus of Atzilus. It's a wonderful thing to have Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem. And it's a wonderful thing to learn Torah, even if it's not Shchich and not Negei L'Maiseh, because Imam Shech Ruchnius. But since we're talking about Oyer, it's Tzimtzuming itself as it goes from level to level.
susceptible
to change, to adaptation, because you're feeling it consciously. Okay, this was the Shir of Gimel Kislev, which was Shabbos' Shir.